I tested all 126 colors in the Pro Acryl range, including the brand new Signature Series sets from Flameon Miniatures and Louise from Rogue Hobbies. In this video, I review what I think are the must-haves and explain why bold titanium white didn't make the cut. Whether you're already familiar with Pro Acryl or have only experience with paints from, say, Games Workshop or the Army Painter, this video will help you find the perfect addition to your paint collection. I'm Stahly from Tale of Painters, and this is my top 10 Pro Acryl paints. The Pro Acryl range from Monument Hobbies is popular among many competition-level painters, and the Signature series is endorsed by well-known creators like Ninjon, Vince Venturella and Louise from Rogue Hobbies. And I also enjoy working with Pro Acryl. Although the twist caps take some getting used to, the paint has a velvety consistency, flows well off the brush, is highly pigmented and dries very matte. Identifying the top 10 colors was quite a challenge since they're all pretty good, but after testing and experimenting with all 126 colors, I came up with a short list. And the first color on my list is an off-white. Good off-whites are a staple for every paint collection. They are incredibly useful to brighten colors, as they produce a more natural and warmer result than mixing in pure white. However, off-whites from other ranges like Vallejo Game and Model Color or Screaming Skull from Games Workshop often have too much of a yellow tint for my liking. This is why I prefer Pro Acryl's Ivory, because it balances yellow and red undertones. The main reason Ivory made it to this list, though, is that it is a perfect match for Citadel's Wraithbone. I use it to paint bone, teeth and claws in my Soulblight Gravelords collection when I don't use Wraithbone primer like I did on these skeleton warriors. Despite being a base paint, Wraithbone has poor coverage and a thick, clumpy texture. Ivory offers a better covering power and a much smoother consistency, making it a superior replacement for Wraithbone in my collection and possibly yours too. Second place on my list goes to a color from the brand new Signature series set by Louise. Her Rogue Hobbies paint set is truly something else. It includes 6 ultra-saturated colors that are almost as vibrant as neon paints. For regular paint jobs, they can be a bit too garish for my taste. But Louise has a great video on her channel explaining how to get the best out of a set, and I think they're fantastic for glow effects. But there's one color that will make it into my daily rotation, and that's the orange red. It reminds me of the orange red used to paint Blood Angels in the first and second editions of Warhammer 40,000, but amplified to 11. Now the camera can't fully capture its vividness, but orange red is so highly pigmented and even the very similar White Rider red from Citadel looks like a sad tomato. On the flip side, coverage is somewhat below average for red, as the high pure pigmentation means it contains almost no opaque pigments. Nonetheless, it's excellent for highlighting, layering and blending bright reds. Which brings us to my next favorite, which is the perfect companion for orange red and vice versa. Though it's also a great primary red on its own. I'm talking about the color commonly known as Ferrari red, which is bold pyrrole red. Pyrrole red is perhaps the most intense red pigment available, and it hasn't been discovered before the 1970s. Pro Acryl's take on this color boasts extremely high saturation. Again, the camera can't fully catch this, but I think you can get a hint of how the usually vibrant Evil Sun Scarlet appears dull in comparison. Not only does bold pyrrole red apply very smoothly and streak-free with a matte finish, its covering power is also surprisingly good. Typically, 2 to 3 thin layers are enough to achieve an opaque result. It's an absolute must-have and complements orange red from Louise's set very nicely. Number 4 on this list is a flesh tone. Finding a good Caucasian skin tone is a science in itself. I don't really like the skin tones from the Citadel range. Cadian Flesh Tone is alright, but its coverage is pretty poor, and Kislev Flesh and Flayed One Flesh are too ochre for my taste. Warpaints Fanatic has a large selection of skin tones, but most of them are too pink for me. I use Talant Flesh from Games Workshop's old Foundation range a lot. Does anyone remember that? It was a bit dark and thick, but had excellent covering power. But now I found a fair skin tone that I like even better. Tan Flash. It's relatively bright, but not too pink, not too ochre, and not too unnatural. The coverage is excellent. Tan Flash covers in 2 thin layers over black. Need a quick skin recipe? 2 layers of Tan Flash, the flash wash of your choice, some optional highlights, and you're done. Tan Flash, an absolute must-have for Caucasian skin. By the way, if you're new to my channel and wondering about all these colored squares, they are taken from one of my hand-painted color swatches, which includes a professional reproduction of all Pro Acryl colors. My goal is to map all paint ranges, and I've already created swatches for Citadel, AK, Vallejo Game and Model Color, Two Thin Coats and Warpaints Fanatic, all compatible with each other so you can compare colors across different paint ranges. You can find them on my Patreon along with the masterclass painting tutorials. Link is in the description below, and I really appreciate your support with this endeavor. I want to create the ultimate resource and many more swatches are planned. Alright, here are the next top contenders in my top 10. I fell in love with the following 2 colors while painting this jean stealer for the Pro Acryl range review on my channel. These 2 colors get often overlooked and are not easily found in other paint ranges. They are blue-black and dark grey-blue. Most other dark blues are often quite saturated, leaning towards royal blue or Prussian blue pigments, but blue-black is more like a very dark denim blue, somewhat more faded. Compared to the Citadel range, it's similar to dark Reaper but darker. I find blue-black very versatile. You can use it to shade denim blues, to highlight black, or you can combine it with a blue-grey. And that's where dark grey-blue comes into play. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the Fang from the Citadel range. I find its shade of blue-grey too violet tinted, and not quite fitting in with rust grey and Fenrisian grey. Pro Acryl's dark grey-blue has, in my opinion, a more neutral blue-grey hue. Additionally, its covering power is just as good, but the consistency is much smoother. So for me, dark grey-blue is the better the Fang and the perfect medium grey-blue, harmonizing wonderfully with blue-black, as you can see on the carapace of my jean stealer. By the way, I used Pro Acryl grey-blue for the highlights, which is also an excellent color, but I have to limit myself to 10 paints in this video. When it comes to green tones, you can't do much wrong with Pro Acryl. However, one color stands out for me, again due to its similarity with the Citadel color range. I know, I talk a lot about Games Workshop paints in this video, but I simply love their color palette, just not the paint itself, if that makes sense. Or the pots. Let me know in the comments if you feel the same. Anyway, for number 7, I've picked the mint green. Bright pale green. Teal and jade greens are some of my favorite colors and frequently appear in my painting projects, and bright pale green is great for extreme edge highlights or glow effects. And you probably guessed it, yes, it's a pretty close match to a color from the Citadel range, namely Gauze Blaster green. However, it has a smoother consistency, better opacity, and comes in a dropper bottle. Next up, we have some metallics. Pro Acryl's metallic paints are all really good, so it's hard to make a choice. But there's one gold tone I keep coming back to, and I also used it to highlight the golden armor of this Sister of Battle. For the base coat, I sprayed the armor with greedy gold from the Warpaints Air range, which is very similar to Retributor armor. However, the Citadel and Army Painter ranges don't have any light gold tones that I'm truly in love with. Auric Armor Gold is too yellow for me, and Liberator Gold is too flat and tends to separate a lot. Enter Bright Gold from Pro Acryl. I used to always mix Retributor armor with silver, but now I prefer this lovely warm light gold tone. The covering power isn't outstanding, but for a gold it's pretty decent. I love the color, and thanks to the fine metallic particles, the finish is really nice. Here it is used for edge highlights on Sister Tariana Palos, which I painted in the colors of the Order of the Golden Light. The penultimate color and second metallic tone in my top 10 is another paint from one of the Signature series sets. There's a muted dark bronze tone in the Citadel color range that I really adore. And admittedly, it's one of the better metallic paints from Games Workshop, so you wouldn't necessarily need a replacement for it. However, I'm a wet palette user, and for that, dropper bottles are just so much more convenient. I'm of course talking about Castellux Bronze. Fortunately, there is now an almost identical shade from Pro Acryl, dark bronze for Matt Cexwish signature set. This color is available individually like all signature paints, so you don't have to get the full set. By the way, the other bronze metallics from Pro Acryl are also very good, but if I had to choose one, it would be dark bronze. Now, if you remember the beginning of the video, I still owe you an explanation as to why bold titanium white didn't make the list. You often read online that it's apparently the best white. And yes, it is a pretty good white, but I only happen to use it rarely. See, the consistency is rather thin and the pigmentation high, which is great for edge highlighting. However, I find that when base coating and applying multiple layers, the finish can become a bit chalky. Additionally, I feel that bold titanium white tends to yellow relatively quickly. Have you noticed that too, or am I the only one? Well, instead, I currently prefer the white from the Vallejo Game and Model Colors series and White Star from Too Thin Coats. Their consistency isn't as thin as bold titanium white, but still silky smooth, and I get a smoother finish when layering. Especially for dry brushing, I prefer the slightly thicker consistency. So, while bold titanium white is a good white, Vallejo and Too Thin Coats are, in my opinion, better all-rounders. Bold titanium white fans, please tell me in the comments why I'm wrong. Before I get to the last color on this list, I'd like to know if you enjoyed this type of video and if I should also pick out the best colors for other paint brands. I'm constantly testing the latest paint ranges on this channel and have a huge archive of paints, so I think I can make some good calls. Of course, it's all highly subjective and the Pro Acryl range doesn't really have any duds. I'd love to know what your favorite Pro Acryl colors are. Drop them below, I read every comment. And give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with the latest miniature paint releases. Okay, last but not least, we have a wash. Strangely, Pro Acryl washes don't seem to be well known, even though they are brilliant. Well, I still like Nuln Oil and its new formula has improved the flow properties. Its tinting power has weakened and the shade paints in general sometimes dry a bit glossy. Dark tone wash from the Army Painter isn't bad, but at the moment my favorite black wash is Pro Acryl's black wash. Not too heavy, not too weak, it finds its way very nicely into recesses. And while it dries not super matte, the finish is also not too satin or too glossy. Number 10 on the top 10 Pro Acryl list is therefore black wash, but all three washes are great. The brown wash, for example, has a very nice dark brown tone. Monument Hobbies, if you're watching this, please release more washes. And if this list has piqued your interest, be sure to check out my in-depth review of the Pro Acryl range, including the Signature series. You can find the video here on the right, but be careful, you might soon have a new favorite paint range. Happy hobbying!